here today with none other than Louis Lymon, brother of Frankie Lymon, and we hope to discuss rock and roll, rhythm and blues, and race music, as it was called back in the 50s, 40s, and 30s. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Louis Lymon.
Good evening, Charles. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Now, can you enlighten us a little on this race music, rock and roll, rhythm and blues?
Well, we can start with race music.
Okay.
Now, race music is music called that because it was self-explanatory. Race music meant it was music that was produced and supplied for the purpose of entertaining black people.
I see. Okay. Now, what was the rhythm and blues? How did that evolve from race music?
Well,
or was it the rhythm and music? What evolved from what? Can you explain that?
Well, about the mid to late 30s, early 40s, rhythm and blues evolved. So rhythm and blues, to my estimation, was really a very sophisticated way of channeling gospel music. You see, that's where it all really began.
I see.
From the church. That's why they call it race music, because it fluctuated or it emanated from the church itself.
Okay. Now, did you sing this gospel music?
Definitely. As a matter of fact, most of your prominent singers of the early 50s and on all had their foundation and roots from the church. The church in those days, was like the backbone of the community, especially down in the South.
Right, I see.
Which is very important to the community. And most people, such as myself and my brothers, we got our thing from the church.
And, okay, now, who taught you how to sing, though, actually?
The person who taught us how to sing was our father, the Howard Lymon Sr.
Now, did he, so you sang in the church with him?
Right. He was singing in a group called the Harlem Man.
I see. And the Harlem Airs, where was their acclaim? I mean, what did they,
Well, the group emanated from the South, and my father was from Tennessee. So I would imagine, I think one or two of the members of the Harlem Man were friends of his from that area or from the same state itself. And in those days, a lot of migration took place from the South to the North. And my father and his friends included in the migration.
Now, how many in your family? How many were they? All boys? 4 boys, I think.
Yeah, it was 4 boys and 1 girl.
One girl.
Anita. But,
did she sing?
Not that I know of, no. My father, he decided one day to take us in the back room of the house and sit down and teach us how to sing. And that's what he did. And God bless him soul. I'm glad he did. But as I said before, most church music was evolutionized and then, processed, and you have what you call rhythm and blues. Still race music in itself, but now it's just changed.
It just changed the name of it, yeah.
As time goes on, things change.
The music down at the end of the dial, as it used to be.
Right.
Yes. How did people think back then when they were coming up singing, young people, groups, and what did they really see?
Well,
can you remember back that far?
Well, excuse me.
The images and
The feeling that I got, now that I think of it today as looking back on it then, it was almost a social, peaceful era where tradition still held strong. You know, but the family fiber was still strong during the early 60s. You know, it was only after the late to early 60s that the family fiber began to decay or disintegrate because of lack of communication. But in those days, it was the first time that it didn't matter whether you were singing race music or not. It just sounded good. And it was like the 50s was what we call the melting pot era of music.
Let me not confuse the audience out there. When we say race music, we don't mean that black people were singing racial music. It was that white people categorized it as race music, as black music, and it was not pop. It was not put into the pop areas and was not played on the pop stations. It was played on stations down at the end of the dial, like WWRL, WADO. There were DJs like Dr. Tommy Small. They called him, Dr. Jive. Tommy Small was his name. Dr. Jive, Jocko. You know, and I tell you, there were many white kids that actually did learn, and I don't know if they snuck around from their family.
Speaking of that, Elvis snuck around the recording studios down in Nashville on the other side of town.
Yes, yes. So,
and as a matter of fact, the owner of the studio, which was a white person, said if I could only find a white person to take this music and commercialize it, he found his dream come true.
Elvis Presley.
And God bless his soul too. He helped also.
But see, I have a problem with that though. See, because